Let's get to our regular Monday panel. The Hawker Britain Managing Director Simon Banks and Bondi Partners Senior Advisor Peter McGauran. Peter, first to you, the numbers might have come back a bit at the end of the campaign, but still an emphatic win for Queensland's LNP.
Oh, I agree, Kieran. I think there's some rewriting a history here. The LNP have a confirmed majority of 14, but they're leading in another 7 seats. They may very well end up with 21 seats majority. That's a significant accomplishment. True, the bulk of them are in central, northern and western Queensland. There's been a complete rout of Labor seats. I think the LNP is leading in 11 out of 18. There's been some modest gains in urban Brisbane by the LNP, but that is still a vulnerability for the Conservative parties, to be sure. But it's not quite the failures that many within the ALP are making out.
The news federally, Simon Banks, what do you make of it? Some mixed elements here, as Peter has touched on, and others, the regional questions, which are big problems for Labor. But Cairns not entirely a write-off for Labor federally, and some Green seats as well.
Yeah, correct. I mean, first of all, you can't just automatically translate a vote at a state government election to a federal government election. People do make different decisions, and in fact, very often they make different decisions federally and state because they want a bit of a hedge against the two tiers of government. But when you look at where the votes kind of moved, maybe let's start from the north and work our way south. So, as you say, Cairns, Leichhardt, far north Queensland, Labor won't be too unhappy that it kind of contained the swing up there, and with Warren Inch retiring, the sitting LNP member at the coming election, I think that'll be an interesting context to watch. If you then come south and look at where the seats really are potentially in contest, first of all, you get Longman, which is sort of, Caboolture, Gympie, sort of just outside of Brisbane. I think the LNP will be pretty happy about where they went there. But when you then come back into Brisbane, essentially you've got those 3 current Green seats. The Liberals will think now they're in a really hot shot for Ryan. Labor will think it's in a really good chance to try and take Brisbane off the Greens. I think Max is probably a little bit safer in Griffith, but it'll be a contest there nonetheless.
And Peter Dutton is obviously popular in his home state. Peter Dutton is popular as a Queensland Peter McGauran, but the thing is, the coalition is at a high watermark at the moment in terms of its seat numbers. So there aren't that many more to pick up. Maybe Blair. Blair is one around, I think it's around Ipswich, where they could pick that one up.
Agreed, Kieran. The Labor Party only holds 5 of 30 seats in Queensland. That's remarkable. Remarkably bad and remarkably good for the opposition. I think, and I stand to be corrected, that the ALP will now focus more on Western Australia, where it's the reverse, where the ALP has demolished the coalition's vote in the last federal election. I think they're going to shift resources away from Queensland. There's very little, despite Simon's good analysis, that the federal Labor Party can see in increasing its seats. They might pick up 1 or 2, the opposition might pick up 1 or 2, but I don't see the ALP making a full assault to reclaim seats in Queensland. There's nothing in the results on Saturday that would justify prioritising Queensland. They need to sandbank South Australia and Western Australia now, because there are very slim pickings for them in Queensland.
Simon Banks, do you think that that's fair?
Yeah, I don't think there are many seats up for either side, as my analysis then just showed you in terms of Queensland. I think it's actually that contest against the Greens, both from the LNP and Labor in central Brisbane, that's going to be the more interesting part of the contest that we'll have in about 6 months' time.
The momentum appears to be with Donald Trump right now. Peter McGauran, he's at Madison Square Garden today, a massive crowd. In New York, though, it's not a seat where you'd expect, it's not a battleground electorate, that's for sure.
Yeah, the excitement factor's all with Donald Trump now. We discussed this last Monday. We spoke about the brilliance and the optics of the McDonald's survey by the candidate, and his confidence would have been built. I'm afraid that you've got to use some judgment. Now, you can only go to the polls so often, and they're still indivisible almost, although I think Trump's always underreported in the polls, which would give him a lead in the swing states, not nationally. But when you look at the way the two candidates are being received, who's turning out, where the money's now going in support of their campaigns, I think you've got to use your political judgment and call it for Donald J. Trump.
That's what you have done. That's what Peter McGauran has done. Simon Banks, you're suggesting the polls remain, and I think many agree with you that the polls are still too close to be making a call right now, Simon.
Yeah, that's right. And look, I mean, the one thing you need to remember about the US system, of course, is that it's actually about voter turnout, not just who people say that they're inclined to vote for one way or the other. Look, I think the Harris campaign probably peaked about a month ago. I think the momentum is with Trump at the moment. If you look at those 7 key swing states, he's just very, very slightly, but still within the margin of error in front in 3 of those states. There are 4 that are literally a deadlock tie in terms of the polls. He really only needs one of them, for example, Pennsylvania, to come his way, and he's in the presidency. So I've been saying for some weeks, I agree with Peter, I think this is his to lose now. But we're into that final week, and I think as we saw in Queensland, you can't just assume that the final week of a campaign goes smoothly for either side. It's really going to be a question of who can get that final bit of momentum in the last few days.
And Beyonce, if she makes her intervention as expected, Peter McGauran, celebrities come and go. Beyonce's at a sort of different level for many, though. What do you think?
Yeah, but she's a Houston girl, and Houston and Texas is locked in for Trump. I agree with Simon. It's a voluntary voting system, but the Republicans this time around have learnt the lesson from the 2020 campaign. They've got their people out voting earlier. I could never understand at the last election why they were relying on their supporters to come out on election day itself. You know, if someone got sick or there was transport problems, they have got out a very large proportion of their supporters already.
We will see, gentlemen. Look forward to catching up with you both next week. Thanks as always, Peter McGauran and Simon Banks.
Pleasure.